Okay, we're live. Hey everyone, Mauricio Jaimes here. I'm happy and excited to share with you this new series of conversations about real estate success investing stories in Colombia. Our purpose is to promote foreign investment in real estate in Colombia. That's why I want to share and bring to our audience the stories told directly by their protagonists. Today, we're going to talk about tourism and hospitality industry in Colombia. And for that, I'm happy to be here with my friend Brad Hinkleman. Brad is the owner and the general manager of Casacol. Casacol is a real estate company, property management company, and real estate operator, hotel operator. And I had the pleasure to meet Brad in 2008 when he made his first investment in real estate in Medellin. We also made the first show of House Hunter International. I guess was the first show in Medellin. Well, he left his job as a technology executive in New York in 2013 after he was captivated with the Medellin lifestyle and real estate opportunities that he saw. Since then, he has helped foreign and local investors place more than maybe $100 million in mostly ground up hotel developments in Medellin. So, welcome, Brad. I'm happy to have you here.
Hello, Mauricio. Nice to see you again. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, Brad, let's start telling us a little more about your first approach to Colombia.
So I got started here in Colombia investing in. I started very small. I started with a one bedroom, sorry, one apartment, a two-bedroom unit, as you well know. We worked on that together. You helped me at a time, when I wasn't speaking Spanish and didn't understand local norms in Colombia. But the one thing that was happening in 2008 when I was living in New York was this little website called Airbnb.com. And I was a real pioneering user of Airbnb as that business got started. And I thought, you know what I'm going to do with this apartment in Colombia? I'm gonna have the very first Airbnb unit in Colombia. And when that building came to completion and we furnished that apartment, indeed, I actually did have the very first Airbnb listing in Colombia. Today, fast forward 10 years later, and we can talk about all the stuff in the middle, but Casacol is the largest Airbnb operator in Colombia. And we kind of go with top one, top two with another property manager in Brazil for the largest Airbnb operator in Latin America.
Oh, that's great. So you were also, I mean, at the same time that Airbnb was like launching, yeah, it was around 2008, 7, maybe.
Yeah, more or less.
Wow, that's great. And you were involved in some part of the technology, or just because you know about the news, or that's
No, I think Airbnb, they started out in San Francisco, but then of course New York City is a very logical market to start expanding. And I don't know, for whatever I was following and reading back in those days, I found Airbnb and started using it. I would travel during the week for business, and I found out that people wanted to pay 250 dollars a night for my studio apartment in Soho. So I basically paid my rent with Airbnb earnings while it was still legal in New York City. They have really tightened the restrictions and regulations around Airbnb in New York City. They have here in Medellin, and they have here in Colombia as well. But yeah, I was a very, very early user of Airbnb in New York City, and then like I mentioned, I had the very first Airbnb listing here in Medellin.
okay. But why Colombia? Because you say, well, yeah, I want to do Airbnb, but why you choose Colombia?
Well, it's a very good question. In fact, it was a mistake that I was even here in 2007. It was winter. I was in Canada. and had an invitation from a friend and his girlfriend who was Colombian. And they said, "Well, what are you going to do for Christmas and New Year's? Come with us to Medellin. We're going to go to Cartagena." And I was kind of guilty, I thought, where, like, I have to look up Colombia, exactly where is it
It's a
on the
mistake.
map? Like, okay, I've been to Brazil, Chile, Argentina, Mexico. Which one of these countries is Colombia? It's 2007. You're doing so, yeah. The internet is in full force. There's lots of information online, but it's not like it is today. But I was doing a little bit of research about the little bit of tourism that there was in Colombia, and I thought, well, it seems like it's not that dangerous. We just have to be careful. Okay, yeah, let's go check it out. So it was kind of a mistake for me to be here on that very first trip to Colombia in 2007.
Just like a casualty, something like that. Huh?
Yeah, it's funny
However,
how life, I think everyone's life is probably the same. It's like you got that job, or you made that trip, or you met that person on a corner of a street, or whatever. For me, the biggest, most influential, life-changing experience I had was literally that random trip to Colombia in 2007.
yeah, and you mentioned something now that is well, maybe it's not too dangerous. That's well, was the one of the first things that people say today. Maybe if they still have when you talk with people about your business or Colombia, say, "Oh, what are you doing there is very dangerous," something like that.
Yeah, it's a few. So back then, people thought I was pretty crazy even to be traveling to Colombia. You can imagine what people thought when I started investing in Colombia, and then investing more in Colombia, then starting a business in Colombia, then quitting a really great job I had working in New York City to go and do my own, real estate startup in Colombia. um, it was just varying degrees of perceptions of craziness that people thought, I was under the influence. And still today, it's 2022. There's still a very, I wouldn't say very, the perception of Colombia is improving all the time, year after year. We still have a long way to go. There's still a lot of, fundamental and structural issues in the country, but this is a country that's developing rapidly. And I just saw, actually, I think I saw this morning or last night, we have the lowest rate of violent crimes in, I don't know if it's in the last 25 years or 50 years, something like that.
Yeah.
We are at one of the lowest rate of violent crime. We're at the highest rate, simultaneously, the highest rate of international arrivals ever in the history of the country. That supersedes the rates that we had in 2019 pre-COVID. So things in general are looking up. People don't think I'm so crazy anymore. I think my mom comes down. She comes down in a couple of weeks
Yeah,
for another trip. So
that's interesting
yeah,
because
Colombia has changed a lot and continues to develop
yeah,
and evolve.
and well, it feels because well, when the first time you arrived to Colombia, you did like a trip or the base Cartagena, all the mostly known places that are for tourists. Obviously, you say your girlfriend's your friend was from Medellin, I guess.
Yeah, we had a
The,
host that very first time, because it was the girlfriend of my friend who was able to, basically show us the best of Medellin and the best of Cartagena and the best of Bogota. We did the Feria de Cali. We did, all the way to Santa Marta and Parque Tayrona. So we got like a really great tour of Colombia in an era where there was not really a lot of tourism. Of
okay,
course, there's something about Medellin that I really liked the best. What I liked the best was, well, actually, there's this huge gap between perception and reality. The perception being very low, very poor. Uh, there's only one or a couple of images that you have in your mind in 2007 when you're thinking about Medellin, Colombia, but the reality was something totally different and totally unexpected. And in that gap is where I saw opportunity as an investor. A really wonderful city with great people, modern infrastructure, clean and organized. You don't, it's not everywhere in Medellin like that, but in the tourist areas, in the really nice parts of town, you'd be hard if you'd be a blindfolded person who would have a hard time telling you, if they're in Latin America or somewhere in Western Europe, or almost any city in the United States. So I saw this gap, and what I saw in that gap was opportunity, and that's what really inspired me to make that first investment, make those subsequent investments, and that's what's got me to where we are today.
Yeah, yeah, because normally, I mean, for many of the people also who contacted me, they're having this initial perception, and when they arrive or when they start knowing more about the country, well, they see that there are a lot of opportunities, and we are keeping like this trend of being like underdeveloped country on development country, no? So there are a lot of things to do, and that's interesting that you also realize that. Um, Going also for your experience of creating this company that you already have built, well, you started as initial as anyone buying a property. You mentioned last under construction, so it took you like starting to feel confidence with the place with Medellin, and then well, you only having your apartment starting to put it on Airbnb. That give you like the initial force to create your company, or how was that? How was the talking about the main issues of starting a company? Not well, you as a foreigner, that is not easy for Colombians, but you as a foreigner, how was that process?
Yeah. So first of all, if you're not properly advised in Colombia, if you're a do-it-yourself type, you're going to end up with a lot of problems here, because the whole kind of political, governmental infrastructure is not set up to do it yourself. You can't just show up and do things online. Getting good deals and doing good business in Colombia means really dealing with experts, and you have to depend on people, at least initially, until you're ready to really do things yourself. You have to depend on people to be guided and advised appropriately, because especially as a foreigner, um, there can be a desire, some people, to trip you up and take advantage of someone who's trying to do things on their own. Um, so working with experts, whether those are expert developers, expert real estate agents, expert legal advisors, accountants, etc. I've made lots of these mistakes. I've made good and bad decisions with these experts over the years, and before I could come in a true expert in the field myself, I had to go through a little bit of trial and error to find the people who will guide a real estate investment professional in an appropriate fashion.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important also, like when you don't know, you don't know the how, but you can know the who. Who is gonna help you with legal matters, with tax matters, also creating a company. That's also important to have it, no?
Yeah, and going back to the other part of your question, I started that very first apartment was just a test. I thought, well, let's see how this goes. There was also a kind of a real estate and financial crisis brewing in the United States at this time,
Yeah,
2008, 2009, which I was watching very closely. The market in Colombia never really, never was not affected, by
Yeah.
this crisis in the United States. The market in Canada, where I'm from, where I was invested as well, was also not really affected by this crisis in the United States. And I had to make a decision. I thought, wow, if Colombia can get through what was probably the biggest crisis since the Great Depression in the United States, then I think things are going to be pretty rock solid, and that's what inspired me to make that first investment. One
Okay.
turned into two, two turned into three, three turns into four. There came a point also where I don't think your viewers know this yet, but we did an episode of a TV program in 2010, 2011 that was very, very well received.
Yeah.
The feedback, I asked the producer not to use my full name because I was employed by
Ah,
a
okay.
Fortune 500 company, and there's, people think that, Colombia's weird. In corporate America, you don't talk about stuff like that. So I said, don't use my last name. Well, they used my last name. A bunch of people from the office recognized me and thought it was really cool. But hundreds and hundreds of people were contacting me on LinkedIn and Facebook asking me about my experience for help. And it was then that I realized that this opportunity in Medellin in Colombia was much bigger than I thought it was going to be. And that's when I started the thought process of really doing business and
Yeah.
helping others invest and managing those investments.
Oh, it was a great showcase for us because I also had even Colombian friends living in the US and, and in Canada saw me and say, "Oh, what are you doing? I didn't know that you were also doing TV shows." And all was one of the
Hmm.
spirits. That was great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of
So
fun.
well, that's also one of the things that push you to continue doing investments and working, as you said, one apartment at a time, and
Hmm.
managing basically Airbnb and rentals, short-term rentals.
And hotels. There's three components of our business today. One is a boutique hotel segment, which serves the ultra short-term tourists, 2 to 5 days. We have a mid to long-term stay condo hotel, apart hotel segment. That accommodates guests from one night to a month to a year. And then we have another segment of our business, which are the long-term executive rentals. These are 30-day rentals and above. They also have each of those segments have slightly different regulations, regulatory frameworks,
Yeah.
and compliance frameworks. But
Let's
but
talk about
yeah.
a little bit more about your current portfolio, because well, you initially have your own properties. You invested in one property, and then you also, I mean, you invested in another property, but you had also properties from other owners, local owners, maybe, or also all foreigners. Tell us a little bit more about how is your portfolio of real estate in your company.
Good question. So, when I made the decision to be here full time, to do business here full time, I grew the business in two different ways. One was assuming property management contracts of very high quality properties and very specific buildings, either short or long term rental wise. And then in parallel to that, ground up real estate development. So basically, back then I called them Airbnb buildings. They're what in Colombia we call apartoteles. It's what a foreigner, like let's say an American, might know as a condo hotel, where each of those units is individually owned, but the HOA, the property management company is essentially me. We manage the building. So the things that our investors, everything that our investors buy, we then take responsibility for as a property manager. And then other investors who are buying, other really interesting things that need really high quality property management, we will take on those contracts as well. But the vast majority of our infrastructure today has been built from the ground up with investor equity capital. People here always ask as well, what about debt? What about bank loans in Colombia? And the reality is foreigners really don't have access to credit here. The reality is, even for Colombians, like I am essentially now, especially having, lots of different Colombian business entities, it's so hard, so difficult working with the banks here for credit. I prefer to do things with investor equity, and that strategy has worked for us very
Yeah.
well. We carry no debt today.
So basically, now you already have your own buildings, maybe. So I mean, from investors that own the property, you manage these complete hotels, and
Correct.
also other from third parties, other owners. Basically,
Correct.
that's
In fact, today I'm taking the call inside one of our, we're just making the beds here. This is a brand new hotel that will launch in the next couple of weeks. I was actually just here this morning with the engineers and architects, going over final details before we launch. But
how,
yeah,
how
this is
many
an example.
how many hotels have you already built?
Oh, that's a good question. Everyone always asks, and I say check the website. I think we're now in like 7, 8, 9. We have a couple of others that are in progress, in the early stages of development. So yeah, it's getting close to 10 projects now that have been realized over the last 10 years.
This will be your tenth
I believe
building.
so. I believe so.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's interesting, Brad. And this part is also, I mean, most of the investors, maybe they don't see this type of opportunities that they are going over the, I mean, the current business, no. So you found that having one building, property building, was doing well, so you started doing another. How was that process? Or you found that there was many interested from investors, and then you move up, finding places or finding lots to start a new hotel.
Yeah. Well, first of all, as a managing tourism real estate, um, managing a whole bunch of like Airbnb type properties and lots of different buildings is a real mess. It's very chaotic. It's expensive. Um, it's hard on the property manager. It's hard on the owner as well. It's hard on the guest. When you can consolidate an entire building,
Mhm.
and buying a building in Colombia is almost impossible because you got to negotiate with 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 people. It just doesn't happen. So building from the ground up is really, when you're looking at um, tourism infrastructure, is really is actually the easiest way to do it. We have bought buildings also and converted them um, from residential to short-term rentals, but it's actually easier for me to just build from the ground up. It's been my experience. And that way you have a whole hotel, a condo hotel, or a boutique hotel. You can control every aspect of the experience, the guest experience, from reception to cleaning and security and design and comforts. You have a certain consistency. um, I don't believe that Airbnb is taking over the world, and there's a place for both traditional hotels and condo hotels, and lots of hybrids sort of in the middle. With we have now, with this hotel where I'm now, we're getting close to 700 rooms in
Oh,
operation. What that means is that I have lots of different data points as well. I know it's working. I know what's producing higher uh, net profit per square foot or per meter every month, more than something else. So that's where my investment dollars personally, and that's where I'm directing investors or inviting investors to follow me, is based on my proprietary knowledge of what's going on um, in the tourism market.
oh yeah. No, that's very. I mean, that's a smart strategy at the end when you said that you have to combine all and maybe consolidate in one building, and that's what's also have been attracted for investors. Tell us a little bit more. How do you have work with this type of? I mean, what type of investor do you work with, and how do you attract them?
It's a good question. So there's no real average investor, but well, there is. If I was to pick an average investor at Casacol, they're typically investing somewhere around two to $300,000 with us. That's for someone to go and part with two or $300,000 in a foreign country. It's typically a high net worth investor.
Okay.
It's typically, what we might call an accredited investor. It's a sophisticated investor. Um, I have experimented dealing with, let's say, call them younger investors, people who are maybe in their early 20s and starting out with 20 or $30,000 investments. It's not something that's been really successful for me because you end up having to spend a lot of time uh,
Explain.
teaching them about investing. Is people feel they deserve, if they've given you 20 or $30,000, that they deserve a course on real estate investing, and that can be very time consuming. But we have investors who have put multiple millions of dollars, up to $5 million of into some of our projects. And so but the average is a retail investor. I'm not managing institutional money. I'm not managing uh, real
Funds,
estate private equity or some kind
family
of
funds, or this kind
a
of family
pension fund. Those big investors, they have come here. We've seen lots of New York investment bankers and London investment bankers who come down here with all kinds of big things. There's actually such thing as too much money.
Yeah.
The New York bankers come down here talking like 100 million or billions, and I'm like, guys, this market, you can't, like, you can buy like this whole neighborhood for $1 billion, and you can buy these four neighborhoods for $1 billion. Like, it's not gonna happen. This is and where I operate are in what are typically $5 to $10 million type projects.
Yeah,
um,
you mentioned something that is maybe not familiar for a term that is not familiar here in for local. That is accredited investors. That's very common in the U.S. or for international investors that are accredited. Here we don't require to have like an status. Maybe you mentioned that also have received investment from young people that have their money. So when you talk about accredited, is also this type of accreditation that they have in the U.S., or that's more the experience of an investor already have?
yeah, it's not like a policy or a regulatory or compliance thing. It's just an observation that the vast majority of my clients are uh, from very high net worth to ultra high net worth, and they're very sophisticated in investors, right? They typically
They know
start
the
out
risk. They know what.
testing with a little bit, and a couple 100,000 here grows into 500,000, turns into 1 million, turns into two, turns into three, four, five, etc. So those are not investors who come in and invest $5 or $10 million in a project at once. Those are long-term relationships that are built on mutual success and built on our experience working with each other.
And the model is to sell the units or the whole a part of the hotel is
I'm personally invested in every single project myself, and then the way and each of those development projects is typically formed as a company, and I make those invitations to investors to help me capitalize that company.
okay.
And that company might deliver the project and then become the operating company, or that company might deliver units. In the case of condominiums or apartment units, it might deliver those units and then dissolve the company because its purpose has been fulfilled.
Basically they own a part of these companies. Yeah.
Correct.
And
Correct. Whether that turns into a titled real estate or a shareholder in a hotel project, it depends on the project.
Yeah, that's something that it would be interesting for our viewers that here we have all the legal structure also in Colombia that is very secure. I don't know if you use like the escrow fiducias or this is an international company. How do you manage that?
No, all the companies here are local. We have used, as what you mentioned, fiducia, which is analogous to an escrow type of company in the United States. We have used them as well in the past. Um, but the most common, for example, let me speak about our latest project, for example. This project here is just simply share emissions. You're buying shares in a company. You have obligations as that investor, as that shareholder. As the legal representative, president of the company, I have obligations to finish the project and guarantee the project. There is definitely a big element of trust
Yeah.
involved. Um,
What is the rate of completion? I mean, all the project that you have found have been completed.
Yeah, 100%, which is not the case with the rest of the market. And unfortunately, what I have seen over the years, and what I see unfortunately today, even in 2022, is there are uh, uh, I don't know if I can even call them real estate developers. They're typically doing their very first project. They're typically learning themselves
Yeah,
what they're doing, and plus they're playing with investor money, and sometimes not always represent with very little experience, and sometimes not representing you know what are accurate financial projections, and um, and there's a number of those projects here locally that have failed, that have been turned back to investors to finish. Um, and you have to be if you have to be really careful who you're doing business with. I'm lucky in that um, when I do a new project, it's almost entirely done with existing investors of mine. So it's not like
yeah,
it's not a new relationship for me or for them. So we're able to do things on a level that is very high trust. That makes things very efficient for me when my investors really trust me, and that makes things very efficient for them when they can trust that I'm going to deliver and execute exactly how things were designed and architected, and exactly how we expect things to be operated.
yeah. Oh, and that's one of the things that, I'm pleased to say that Brad is one of survivors, I would say, or one of the guys who have been stand for, almost just 10 years or more. I know other companies that, also from foreigners that also wants to do
Hmm.
several things. Unfortunately, the experience with another investor was not so good. Well, we don't talk about the bad things. That's
Well,
why,
and not to mention COVID. You know,
yeah,
we went
yeah. Some,
the
it,
last 2 years we went through. You know, it's sometimes it's painful for me to think back and remember, but we went through some really difficult times.
yeah. Well,
And we came out stronger than ever before, because I had a very different attitude going into COVID.
yeah,
Um,
tell us a little bit more about that, because well, everybody talks about the most affected industry is the tourism, uh,
yeah,
globally,
yeah.
and well, when you say in a developed country, you could be here to the harder. But tell us a little bit more. How did you manage to go through this stage?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stories, and there's some long ones, but if I was going to summarize, I would say that I had the attitude going into it. I said, no one is losing their job. Everyone's taking a pay cut. No one is losing their job, and especially um, all of our cleaning, maintenance, and reception staff, which form the bulk of our payroll
Yeah,
in the hotel business. And knowing a lot of these people very personally, there's just no way I could have let go. Um, you know, a single mother of three. Like, it's just, it was unfathomable. It, we were, it's it just I wasn't going to let that happen. I was, however, going to ask a whole bunch of high paid property managers and sales guys, etc. I asked everyone to take a pay cut so we could afford to maintain everyone employed. The second thing we did was decided to stay open. So the whole industry was closing, and I thought, this is crazy. So, well, if we're gonna keep all the staff on, we may as well just stay open. And the government is allowing hotels to stay open as an essential service, an essential industry. So we're just gonna do it. The third thing that came to my mind, I saw very early. Colombia had a finance minister. I think his name was Carrasquilla.
Yeah, yeah.
Carrasquilla.
Correct,
And
yeah.
I was following him on Twitter, and I saw some of the things he was writing, because what I was looking for was payroll subsidies. And he
Ah,
was talking about it, and he was talking about it, and I thought, this is he's gonna find money to subsidize Colombian payrolls, just like,
yeah.
and he did. But you only got those subsidies if you kept your staff. So if you
Yeah.
fired your staff in Colombia, you weren't eligible for this. I mean, by definition, there's nobody to subsidize.
Well, man. No,
So
that's good to hear that, because when you think with your heart, when you are thinking more to protect people, all the things at the end are gonna be in your favor, and you have to take it. That's what you had also, to take advantage of the subsidy that were, because that were temporary, no?
yes, but the most interesting thing about staying open, especially having condo hotels, was that we started filling up.
How much?
So in the middle of COVID, we started filling up.
How
So,
much the rate, occupation rate? You said, well, we came from 70% and then go down, or
well,
you
well,
might.
in February, let's say February 2020, we finished probably an all-time highs, somewhere in like the 90s, and then March was down because we were kind of half affected. But April, May, June were, well, no, just particularly in April, I believe we're under 50%, which is actually still a break-even point. You still kind of you still kind of break even at 50, but we started filling up, even in the middle of the pandemic. And what we found was that because we were open, people were working on the front lines, and like doctors and nurses and things like that,
Yeah,
didn't want to go home and infect their families, because we didn't know how well. Some
yeah,
people were very scared about what the impacts could be of the virus, so they didn't want to infect their families or any risks, so they went and lived in a hotel, and we would negotiate a very good rate with them to stay for a week or 2 weeks or for a month. In Colombia, you have a lot of multi-generational households. So like people in their 20s living with their parents in their 50s, living with their grandparents in their 80s. And the people
yeah.
in their 20s were like still going out socializing, not respecting quarantine and things like that. So the parents and grandparents were like, well, then get out of here. And if you could afford it, then you could negotiate with us a room for a month, and
Wow.
you had your own place. So we're giving very attractive rates in the depths of the pandemic, and we actually ended up with occupancies in like the 60s
Yeah,
levels, not at the highest rates, but
yeah.
we never lost any money. We never had a single month where we lost any money.
In
So we
comparison with
managed.
other hotels that were closed, and there we
That's
have
right.
it, no
That's right. It was
bookings.
like last man standing kind
Yeah.
of philosophy.
How do you? I mean, because you have, I mean, this normally when someone is going to build a hotel, an infrastructure, they look for an international operator, for a big brand, and well, that's not your case. You manage your own hotels, and you're doing very well. So how have you, or why haven't you choose to work with a big brand operator?
So it's a good question, because the thing is, most people outside the industry don't realize, they see let's say a Marriott or a Hilton or a Sheraton, and they think, oh, Sheraton owns that hotel.
Yeah.
In very, very, very few cases is that actually true.
Oh,
Somebody owns that hotel, an investment group, or a person or a family owns that hotel. Um, you
they
then
don't own
pay.
assets. The
Sorry.
big brands don't own the asset. They own,
Right.
hey, you build,
They're
take the
they're
risk.
licensing companies, they're marketing companies, they're licensing companies. They give some distribution of reservations. They take a commission, right? You pay them for that license on top of paying an operator. So if you're a hotel owner or part of a hotel ownership group, you're usually typically faced with paying a manager, a management company, and paying them. They're going to make a profit, and then you're paying a big brand, what we might call a flag, to license their name, their brand, some of their know-how, and some of their flow of reservations. Um, I mean, I don't want it to come off as like the wrong way, but I just thought we could, by vertically integrating, we could do things a lot better, especially younger travelers. You can call them millennials if you want. I turned 40 last October. I'm technically a millennial. I was born in 1981. That is like the technical division of the millennial generation. Um, a lot of our products are built for millennials. They're built for younger people. Young millennials don't want to stay in the Marriott of their dad, of their grandpa. Like they want something that's young, that's hip. They want something that might be an Airbnb format. And so I've never really seen the need to have discussions with well, number one, other operators, but number two, the large brands, because I truly believe that our standard operating procedures, I believe that our deep knowledge of our client, our local market is superior to the value that they can provide. And I'm able to provide that value to my investors, and provide that and monetize that value for myself as well.
Yeah, you said like having a Ritz Carlton or Four Season experience on on a small
Yeah,
scale.
yeah. I mean, it's part of our management philosophy. When I was working for blue chip companies, during my 20s. Some of the hotels on the list were some really nice hotels. Not all of them were always really nice, but some of them in some cities were really nice. I really got to know the Four Seasons brand, which happened to be founded by a Canadian, Isidore Sharp. I'm very much a student of Isidore Sharp. He even wrote a book, but that's a philosophy that I really try to adopt and scale down into this market. A philosophy and a culture of service, and attention to detail, and understanding of client needs and addressing client needs. Sounds like basic stuff, but the hotel business, the hospitality business is really, really tough. You've got to have a lot of EQ, and you have to have a lot of IQ, to do it well. Otherwise, you just end up like the average.
Yeah, let's well, when you talk about, yeah, this is a difficult industry not only here in Colombia but in general. How you see the hotel and tourism industry in Colombia? How do you well, basically in Medellin that you have specialized, but maybe how do you see the future, or how is the current situation for projects, for new projects, or the ones that you're managing?
Right. So if we were having this conversation in 2019 or January 2020, I would probably show you some kind of graph that looks like this, right? Just kind of keeps going straight up. Um, Now, what COVID did to us was create a massive dip, but we're essentially, I would say, really ever since October of last year, October 2021, we actually in Medellin we superamos. I forget my English sometimes.
Oh, don't
We
worry. But
we reached and went over the previous peak of international arrivals at the
okay,
airport here. That was in October of last year. We're very much on that same line I would have painted for you in 2019. We're on that line in 2020. It's just been truncated by by the corona by the coronavirus.
Okay.
So, but we're very much on that same path. And so, if going to draw that line for you into the future, to the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, it's very much it's very much it's not an exponential curve, but that line is very much on the same trend
Like a
of
steady growth.
compounded 10 to 15% annual growth in tourism, which you have to define as either usually international arrivals. This is we have an airport here that it has a very advanced design for a second runway. We have a lot of hotel. We have good zoning related to hotel infrastructure here. I've seen this. I will. I've seen this market evolve over the last 10 years. I can kind of predict the future for the next 5 or 10 years, and I think it looks really, really bright. We have a government who the last couple of administrations were very they had very favorable policy, especially tax policy related to tourism and tax incentives related to the building of tourism infrastructure. And we have a presidential election coming up in
Yeah,
June of this year, and we have a bunch of potential presidents all talking about tourism, which I
yeah,
think is the
yeah.
first time I've ever seen this.
It doesn't matter where people think is gonna be. I mean, from right or from left or for the whatever line they think. But yeah, this is one of the industries or the sectors that are focusing in promote. Yeah, and that's something that make you feel like comfortable at the long term or the midterm.
Yeah, because I think from a government perspective, they see how what the value of tourism. It's a clean industry, it doesn't generate excess carbon dioxide. Um,
Yeah,
it has a very immediate, instantaneous economic impact. The money goes from the tourism very quickly into the economy. It creates a lot of jobs that are mostly for women, mostly for young people, which is a hot topic in Colombian economics, and especially with respect to unemployment. So, tourism has, and it just creates a lot of, knock-on indirect jobs as well. A tourist comes and there's that $5 for the taxi, and then it goes to that restaurant, and it goes to that tour, and it's like, it's a very economically interesting industry now for the country, as they're looking to sort of rebuild post-COVID, but also potentially fill some shortfalls related to the historical petroleum industry and things like that. So yeah, for the first time, you have all these politicians all talking about tourism. I don't think we can. I don't think we can lose.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I hope I don't eat those words, but I don't think we can lose at this
Yeah,
point.
there was, I mean, this government passed a law giving tax incentives also up to 20 years for new hotels, park,
Mm.
ecotourism, and this, but depending on the size, I mean, cities lower than 200,000 inhabitants. So, what do you think this type of incentives?
Well, I think it's great when government wants to help the private sector. They want to impulse the private sector to go and do certain things. I'm actually not a huge fan of the tax incentives. I'll tell you why. I'm flattered that they want to continue to reduce our corporate taxes here from in the 30s to something under 10%. Um, but tax incentives also have the impact of distorting the market somewhat. It has the impact of people building tourism infrastructure for the tax incentive, not because
Okay.
a lot of the vast majority of hotels and that get built here get built by people they have no data. They haven't looked at any data. They just go, wow, it seems like a lot of foreigners on the street. Let's go build a hotel this week.
Yeah,
That's like literally the attitude of the typical Colombian hotel developer. So um, tax incentives only make that worse. And we could see I don't know, we could see one day maybe an oversupply of hotels. I think rates should be a lot higher than they are right now. We do very well financially right now, but I think we could be doing much better. Um, and I'm happy to pay the higher tax rate.
What
But
you don't
let's have the market balanced and with participating professionals versus novices who are building for a tax reason, not
Yeah.
for any other reason than just a lower tax rate.
Oh, and that's that's coming from a person that knows how to pay tax. That's also benefit you. You don't hear many Colombians talking about paying taxes.
Well, it's a numerical exercise, right? It's like, you know, take $100 paying 30% tax. How much is that? 30. Well, if you're only making $30,
Yeah,
you know, then what then who cares what the tax rate is? It's like we should be focused on an
produce more.
industry that is balanced and more profitable than just purely let's just pay lower tax at any net operating income rate. It doesn't make sense from
Yeah,
my perspective, and it could be an issue in coming years. But most of those tax incentives are set to expire with this administration, which wraps up this year, I believe. But I'm totally okay with that. I'm fine to pay the top line tax rate.
yeah. What you mentioned, if I mean, for some foreigner who wants to invest or start a new hotel, as long as they see that in the long term, and he's driving more for service, for giving a good experience, a different experience, because here in Colombia, the market service is one of the things that has to be improved a lot in basically in the touring industry. So the ones that are giving best value added services are the ones who are winning, and that's a huge window for those ones who wants to start a new project. And if it's a tax incentive, it's okay. But yes, you have a very interesting point, knowing that it's not for the sake of the investment. So, Brad, knowing that you have also a technology background, a tech background, we hear now about these new things, technologies about blockchain, NFT, these things that are also disrupting the real estate and also the hotel industry. How do you see that? Have you is this something that is in your radar, or what do you think of that?
Well, I don't know. I hope I'm not a dinosaur already. Again, I'm 40. I don't know if that's old or young anymore. It's weird. It's a weird time of life. Um, uh, these are not things that are very interesting to me, to be honest.
This
A
is not
brick,
something that
it's
maybe.
like a brick is a brick is a brick. The better location, the better. Like what people are doing with, blockchain and real estate. I'm looking at a little bit of it in like the metaverse and things like that. The more I read about it, the more I think I'm just wasting my time because, and now again, maybe I'll eat those words. I don't know, but I just don't see any application to these technologies or philosophies or whatever you want to call them. I just don't see an application today. I see an application to my business. I see an application in other businesses. I think it's really interesting what cryptocurrencies and the impact it could have on banking and lending and cross-border transactions, which are a pain in the butt
Yeah,
for us. Um, you know,
I mean, it's not the what I see of the blockchain technology, the security part of of transactions, the way you can also have the security that you're investing in something real, but also backed with a real asset. No, yeah,
I'm
it's
I'm
something.
I'm quite content with the legal framework in Colombia and how uh, uh, sociedades de acciones simplificadas, which is based on the French methodology of owning companies. Um, I, I'm actually quite satisfied with a little bit of pen and paperwork and registering things in the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm okay with what's working right now is working,
Yeah.
and with the right legal and accounting advisors, you can make things very very easy to do business, and um, I think one day, more and more electronic records and the liquidity of certain assets can or are definitely going to change. The volatility might change as a result. I'm in the business of stability. I like stable, long-term, steady as she goes, get rich slow. It's a zero-sum game. I don't believe that any of these technologies are something that are going to give me some
Okay.
like edge or some add some value to what I'm trying to do.
That's great. That's the I
Sorry
mean
if that's not the
the
answer you were
old-fashioned
looking for.
way is the way that is working every all time.
Right.
Going steady, working, knowing the things, and that's gonna work. That's great. So yes, just to finish because yeah, we're getting an hour. What is the or what would be your most important key points for an investor who wants to endeavor maybe the tourism and hotel industry or any other endeavor?
So I would say number one, who had good investment advice? Was it Warren Buffett who said like you should really you should really feel some connection to what you're investing in. Like, he bought, I don't know, was it Dairy Queen or something? Because he loves Dairy Queen. And,
Mhm.
um, you know, I, I think that when you're looking at um, foreign real estate, it's kind of like an exotic sort of investment opportunity. You should have some personal connection to it. You should spend some. If Colombia is interesting, if all of the financial opportunity is interesting, build that Colombian connection. Spend some time. Really get to know the culture. Really feel strongly about the investment that you might make and the impact that that might have on the local economy and not just yourself. Um, investing should not just be a financial return. It should also have some additional benefits, to how you conduct your life, etc. And a lot of my investors, they find me, they come here, they spend some time here, and then they start going to Google and searching for Medellin real estate and all these keywords, and sooner or later you're going to find me pretty quick. And and then all of a sudden we're talking. So I have a fairly captive audience of people who really know Colombia. They like Colombia, and that makes them very confident, or at least more confident to invest here. Um, that would be one thing. A second thing is, I think we talked about at the beginning. There's you can do kind of the do-it-yourself method, and in the United States and maybe Canada and some other parts of Europe, it can work for most people, and it's doing everything online and getting all your information online. This is still a developing country, and the true as experts locally are insiders, and they know how to navigate what smells like roses and what smells like dog poo. So, and there's a lot of dog poo in this market looking for foreign investors. It's every day. I'm actually, it's too bad, because this is a market where foreigners can be taken advantage of, and those impacts can have a negative perception on our entire industry here at least in this market. So, find an expert who you feel really, really comfortable with, and spend some time with that person. Ask for references. We do reference calls for clients all the time. So number two, I would say, Really focus on the expert. And number three, maybe more technical. Remember, real estate in general is not known for being a very highly liquid asset. And real estate in Colombia, real estate in anywhere outside of a developed market is even less liquid. So, and for me as an investor, liquidity is very important. So you want to have a lot of thought process, and you want to have conversations with your advisors on the liquidity of this asset. It's very easy to buy stuff in Colombia. Sometimes it's very, very, very difficult to sell.
Okay.
So, and there's a lot of components that can go into liquidity, but you should have the liquidity conversation with your expert. Maybe that's what helps you realize if that person's an investor or not. Because, like I said, getting into these assets is very easy. You just
It's
stroke a pen and send a transfer. Getting out of them, if you ever need that money, especially urgently, can be a totally different ballgame.
Yeah, I would say that when you're investing in real estate, you have to think in the long term, but you have to also plan like an exit strategy. Yeah,
Hmm.
in order to
Hmm.
know that
Right,
if you're gonna, yeah,
right,
I'm aware that
precisely.
it's a lot.
No one likes to think about the end. No one likes to think about selling when they're buying.
Yeah,
No one thinks about it. I'm guilty. I mean, right? We're all. It's what comes with real estate. There's emotional component to it, but there is a day where the end comes. Everybody sells, and that's where sometimes you can end up with very unhappy clients if they
yeah,
haven't been advised in a responsible fashion.
okay. Well, that's great insight, Brad. Very helpful. I know that people are reviewing or are gonna see this video is gonna take in account all this experience that you already have. So just to end, what is let us know about the last launch on if you want to make an announcement or invitation about your next project that the
About
one that
this
you're there.
about this particular hotel, sure. So you'll find a little bit of information online. Landmark Medellin. We're located in Barrio Manila, which is probably the coolest, most up and coming little neighborhood in El Poblado, which is the main tourist zone of Medellin. I've been wanting to do a project here for years, and we've got very lucky finding this particular lot. 84 rooms, 3 restaurants, a beautiful rooftop. So today's February the 1st. We should be launched within 2 weeks or 3 weeks. If you're actually listening to this, um, uh, I don't know if I put my email in the chat or something.
Ah, yeah,
Um,
uh,
uh, and you want a really good deal and you're willing to come here and check it out in our soft launch phase, send me an email, and we'll get you a really good deal. Maybe even a free night during the month of February. But yeah, you'll be able to find it on booking.com. The website's in development. Landmarkmedellin.com, I believe it is, will be up and running within a few weeks. And it's a very, very important new asset to this particular neighborhood and to the city. Very
great.
high quality designs and very accessible room rates as well.
Yeah, you can.
So
Your email is brad at casacol.co.
let's see.
Okay. Look
BRAD at casacol.co.
.co. Landmark Medellin. That is going to be the next hotel, the new brand of Casacol and Brad projects. That's great. That's going to be another excellent hotel as any other, all the tents that you already have, having a great service, not only for locals, but for foreigners. And thank you, Brad, for sharing all this amazing story. All you have achieved. I admire all your discipline, your persistence, and well, basically your love for a country that well has taken you very well, I guess, at this point. No?
Yeah, and thank you for the invitation and for keeping in touch
Yeah,
after all these years. It's all about networking and your
It's very
connections.
nice to see how everything evolves. And yeah, very proud to meet you at the first stages, and
Hmm.
keep in contact, and hoping that there's going to be great new projects ahead. So thank you, Brad, and thank you all for watching this video. Whatever you have at the comments, you can contact Brad at casacol.co, or directly at his email at brad@casacol.co. So thank you again, Brad. So see you in the next project.
You got it. Thanks,
Okay,
Mauricio. Bye bye.
bye bye.